Shalom. Tonight begins the 7th day of Passover. You know, so much time and effort goes into preparing for the Passover Seder. Then it's over. A little anticlimactic, no? Especially this year. Okay, we've left Egypt, so what do we do now? What's next? But Passover doesn't end with the Seder. That's just the beginning. The week-long festival continues concurrently with the counting of the Omer, and as we have learned, a huge spiritual configuration and set of challenges began on the first night of Pesach. On that night, God delivered his people Israel with an outstretched arm, as it says in Exodus 6, exclusively of his own initiative, at the exact moment of their greatest need for redemption. The illumination of that direct, gratis divine intervention was so powerful, so overwhelming, and yet so elusive that it could not remain with the people. Israel walked out of Egypt by that divine light, but in the coming weeks they would have to work hard with self-motivated, slow spiritual progression of their own initiative in order to get that light back. This is actually one of the most important messages of Passover. In order for that light to shine for us, in order for us to make it real, we have to make it our own. We have to own it by deserving it. Now, and you shall count for yourselves from the morrow of the great Sabbath, meaning the first day of Passover, 7 complete weeks, Leviticus 23, and slowly regain that level of illumination. And so too, the same powerful spiritual light washes over all of us each year on that night, as God in his mercy and love extends his arm once again and grants us, all of us, the opportunity to leave Egypt behind us and begin a new exodus towards true freedom, once and for all. And in the morning, we awake as from a dream, with the notion that something profoundly important has happened. But as with a dream, it cannot last unless it can be made tangible, solid, and lasting. And this, of course, is one purpose of the Omer, which we've already begun to count. But what do we need to do in order to deserve that illumination? We had it as a gift outright on the first night of Passover, but what must we do to acquire it fairly and make it our own? One answer lies in an understanding of the nature of the 7th day of Passover. Clearly, if Passover is the quintessential Jewish experience of emancipation and birth as a nation, then the culmination of this experience is Israel's crossing of the Sea of Reeds, which takes place on the 7th day of the festival. The experience of the splitting of the sea was an unparalleled showcase of spiritual power and clarity in the true knowledge of God. The people of Israel, great and small alike, were totally transfixed by this vision of the reality of God's power and providence, and the entire nation ascended to the highest level of prophecy. As our sages enigmatically expressed, the entire people cried out, "This is my God, and I will extol him." Exodus 15 and verse 2. For even the simple, most ordinary maidservant saw more at the splitting of the sea than even the experienced and righteous prophet Ezekiel. But a closer examination of what took place at the sea, according to the Midrash, reveals the complexity of Israel's struggle to free herself from the shackles of Egypt that still remained in her mind. So open up your heart in the deepest way, please. The Midrash chillingly relates that when the children of Israel reached the sea, finding themselves pursued by the Egyptians tonight, on the 7th day of Passover, they were divided, or rather they divided themselves, or rather they divided against themselves, into 4 distinct groups. Each group expressed a different stance and opinion as to how to proceed with the situation at hand. One group, filled with hopelessness, decided that suicide is the best option. They said, "Let us throw ourselves into the sea and drown." Another group, with a defeatist attitude, said, "Let's just go back to Egypt." The next group, taking a more militant stance, said, "Let us fight them." And one last group said, "Let us cry out to God." And finally, famously, Nachshon, prince of the tribe of Judah, jumped into the water and began walking until it reached his nostrils. And when he could walk no further, the sea split and remained open for the entire nation to walk through. And of course, this is how God makes miracles. Our sages are teaching us that when a human being is willing to go the distance and first do everything humanly possible with no excuses and no looking back, then Hashem steps in. Because without that initiative on our part, if we're not willing to do something for ourselves, why should God do anything? On a deeper level of meaning, the concept of the nation at the sea being divided into these distinct groups and the opinions they expressed relate to the question of how to get on with fulfilling our mission, our destiny, or in the modern day vernacular, what to do about the Jewish problem. Some said, we are simply up against too much in this world, it's pointless, and we might as well just give up. Others said, let's try to placate the Egyptians, we'll apologize for leaving and gladly serve them again, we'll do anything to make them happy. Others said, we'll confront them militarily. Some felt that all we can do is cry. In the end, Moses told them, each of you is wrong. God will handle all of this himself. What does the verse say in Exodus chapter 14, verses 13 and 14? He said, do not fear, stand fast and see the salvation of Hashem that he will perform for you today. For as you have seen Egypt today, you shall not see them ever again. Hashem shall make war for you, and you shall remain silent. So open up your heart in the deepest way. Here's the true meaning of each of these expressions, each of Moshe's statements, each of his words. To the group that wanted to jump into the sea, Moses said, stand fast. To the group that wanted to return to Egypt, Moses said, you shall not see them ever again. To the group that wanted to wage war, Moses said, Hashem shall make war for you. To the group that wanted to cry, Moses said, you shall remain silent. But the point is, it's not so easy for a slave to stop being a slave. Freedom from physical bondage is only the first step. What is the next step to true freedom and getting back the light? What is the next step? Well, another astounding insight of our sages relates that the Sea of Reeds only split in the merit of the righteous Joseph, who withstood, if you recall, the temptation of his master's wife. There's a verse in Psalms 114, verse 3 that states, the sea saw and fled. And the rabbis ask, what did the sea see that caused it to flee, to split and part its waters? It saw the coffin of Joseph. Actually, this teaching expresses a profound allegorical message. What is the connection between the righteous Joseph and the splitting of the sea that the great sages wish to emphasize? Why was seeing the coffin of Joseph, which was being transported across the sea by Moshe, as we find in Exodus chapter 13 and verse 19, why was that enough to make the mighty Sea of Reeds up and flee? Joseph is called tzaddik, righteous, because the Torah testifies regarding his temptation with his master's wife that Joseph was truly pure and able to control himself, particularly in that area of human life, which is the true test and testimony of an individual's righteousness. When a person endeavors to serve God by breaking and training his character traits in order to bring the entire spectrum of his personality into the realm of holiness for the service of God, which, by the way, open up your heart in the deepest way, is the whole point of the Omer count and the spiritual work of self-improvement that comes along with it, then that person needs superhuman strength to gain mastery and dominion over one's own human nature, because to do that is to master the power of nature and to become elevated above it. And such a person is called a tzaddik, one who is truly righteous. Thus we are taught that the Holy One, blessed be He, may make a decree, but a tzaddik, a righteous person, a truly righteous person, can nullify God's decree. How is it that a righteous individual has the power to nullify God's will, His decrees? Precisely because such a person can change and even reverse his very nature for the honor of God. Thus, open up your heart in the deepest way. In the inimitable style of divine measure for measure, which is how God runs the world, God reverses his decrees as well in the merit of this person. Thus, the sea saw and fled. The splitting of the sea was in the merit of Joseph because the sea changed its very nature for the honor of the will of God. So open up your heart. At the time of creation, God originally declared, let the waters gather together. Genesis 1:9. The nature of water is to stand together in one place. But in the merit of Joseph, who changed his own nature, who gained mastery over his nature for the sake of the honor of God, and therefore earned the title of righteous, the sea changed its very nature as well, as if the sea reasoned to itself, open up your heart. If Joseph could change his nature for the Creator, then so can I. So the sea saw Joseph and split. And this all comes together on the seventh day of Passover. The first day and that overwhelming wash of the light of redemption is inexorably bound up with the last day. The more we can change ourselves into the people that we have the potential to become, the more we are deserving of that light. After all, what was the purpose of the Exodus in the first place? God states clearly, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt to be for you a God. To acknowledge that he should be for us as a God is what God constantly expects from us. Otherwise, it's as if he wonders aloud, why did I bother with you in the first place? And thus the verse states, I am the Lord your God who took you out of the land of Egypt to be for you a God. Why does the verse end with these words, to be for you a God? The meaning is simple. The only reason I brought you forth from Egypt is to be your God. If you are not interested in this relationship, you are wasting my time. I brought you forth from Egyptian bondage to be my servants. If we will not have him as a God, does he not wonder why he bothered to take us out? Passover is the call for all of us to be God's people. And being his people carries with it the responsibility of constant spiritual growth, or at least the desire for spiritual growth, the desire to change. It means never looking back towards Egypt. And this is part of the secret of the splitting of the sea, the secret of breaking the pattern of Egypt and getting back the light of redemption. Coming to the sea, we must cross it and not stand there, vacillating, moaning, and recriminating. The highest level of prophecy and the fulfillment of our destiny awaits us on the other side. Crossing the sea to freedom, the first and last freedom, the only real freedom to be servants of Hashem, it awaits us on the other side. We can do this. Don't look back. With blessings for redemption. Chag Sameach. Shalom. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. If you enjoy these presentations and benefit from these teachings, please consider helping Jerusalem Lights with your support. Only your support enables these broadcasts to continue and grow.